If you're a baseball fan, you probably know Ken Rosenthal, if only for his signature bow ties. Rosenthal is widely considered the top baseball reporter in the business. See him in the dugout during the World Series in his role as Fox's lead reporter. He also writes columns for The Athletic, a prominent sports website. And until this past week, he was a correspondent for the MLB Network. But Rosenthal's contract was not renewed by the MLB Network. The reported reason should trouble us all. It stems back to the spring of 2020. In several columns for The Athletic, Rosenthal was highly critical of Major League Baseball's commissioner, Rob Manfred. Rosenthal believed that Manfred was derelict in striking a labor deal with the players to return to action for a COVID-shortened season. In one particularly pointed article for The Athletic, he wrote, "For a guy who suddenly is looking for labor peace, Manfred sure has a funny way of showing it. He and the owners, supposed stewards of the game, are turning the national pastime into a national punchline, effectively threatening to take their ball and go home while the country struggles with medical, economic, and societal concerns." Rosenthal was suspended for 3 months shortly after his articles were published. He did return to the network in the fall of 2020, but his contract lapsed last week on December 31st and was not renewed. The New York Post reports that those articles were the reason why. That's a particularly tough time for Major League Baseball. The league has locked out its players as the two sides are far apart on a long-term labor deal. The stalemate threatens to shut down the sport through spring training and maybe even to the regular season and beyond. With potentially billions of dollars at stake, MLB clearly did not want to amplify a voice that was anti-management. But this guy, Ken Rosenthal, he's not a zealot. He's an objective observer. He's a professional, according to just about all of his peers. Major League Baseball apparently decided it does not want even-handed objectivity on its platform. It seems they want yes men, want reporters who will toe the company line. And remember, Rosenthal didn't even make the comments in question on the MLB Network. He was writing for another publication. Rosenthal hasn't said much about his departure. He did seem to sort of nod to the reported reason behind it. In a tweet on Monday, he wrote, "Can confirm MLB Network has decided not to bring me back. I always strove to maintain my journalistic integrity, and my work reflects that." Joining me now is Andrew Marchand. He's the sports media columnist for the New York Post. He broke the story about Rosenthal's departure. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so take us through this a little bit as to how you're so certain that the reason he's out is because of the things he said about the commissioner.
Well, you kind of outlined what happened, but back in 2020, where the pandemic was starting to really roar, there was a question if Major League Baseball was going to even play. There was a lot of acrimony between the commissioner's office and the Players Association trying to come to an agreement. And Rosenthal wrote a column about it, which was pretty even-handed. I mean, obviously there was some light touches at the commissioner. And then he had a couple other columns as well where he's been critical of baseball. And so when you have an organization like MLB Network, which is owned by the major league owners and which is the commissioner has control over it, they're going to want to have a say in terms of what is reported and how they are shown, and so they didn't like what he said.
But I guess I don't watch MLB Network enough to know the answer to this question. But do they present themselves as a place that actually is like reporting on what's happening in baseball, or do they portray themselves as like the Russian news service of baseball, where they're just sort of saying what the owners want them to say?
Yeah, well, look, this is what happens with these type of places. When you look at MLB Network, they hired Bob Costas, they hired Ken Rosenthal, they hired Joel Sherman, John Heyman, Tom Verducci. These are top broadcasters with Costas, and then insiders in baseball in terms of writers with the other guys I mentioned. And why do they do that? Well, for credibility. And I think everyone who comes in agreement with MLB Network when you work for another publication or you're an established journalist or you're Bob Costas, they might not admit it, but they know that it's not exactly a perfect arrangement because MLB Network is owned by baseball. In effect, you're working for the people you're covering. So you're always going to have this problem. And so the trade-off is Number one is you hope that they'll let them be as honest as possible. And really they have in large part, but then you're going to have blowback like you always do. I mean, you have blowback anyway. You probably get blowback all the time from people who are mad at things you say and you don't even work for them.
Never. People love everything I say. They agree with everything all the time. Well, Andrew Marchand, it's good. The good news is that we've still got independent journalists like yourself out there. Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.